Welcome to a hot episode of Backyard Oasis. Today we will show you the behind-the-scenes workings of Brad Morton, an artist who has created a beautiful bronze sculpture that will be the focal point of today's water feature. Chuck gets truly creative on this project. We have a busy show planned for you today, so let's go straight out to Chuck to see what's cooking.
Folks, we got an incredibly hot show for you today. Stick around.
There's water in the brook running down to the stream. There's a bullfrog on the bank, baby, singing songs to me. There's fish down underneath that water, baby, saying, "Oh man, you'll never catch me." When water falling down from the sky up above makes everything green, makes my flowers fall in love. Saw a thorny Mr. Rosebush, baby, saddle up to Miss Foxy Glove.
Today's show is sponsored in part by Firestone Pond Guard Rubber Liners.
Water running down the mighty Mississippi. Oh, water. You know there's some down there in Mobile.
Hey, I'm here helping Brad Morton out. He's the sculptor that's the focal point of the water feature that we're doing today. And Brad's going to take us by the step-by-step operation of how this unique piece was created, and I think you're really going to enjoy this show.
Putting a combination of new bronze ingot in there, but I'm also recycling some of the sprues and bad castings that we've had left over from other pours. I don't like to just use nothing but sprues and other castings because it's good to always add the new metal back into it, because each time you melt, you're kind of cooking a little bit of the composition of the bronze out of it, so you want to keep your alloy where it's supposed to be. So the next thing we're going to do is check the temperature. I always preheat this probe up to about 2,050 to 2,100 degrees before I put it into the metal. And we're looking for a metal temperature of about 2050. Right now we're at about 2048, so it's just about perfect. Still got 1,015 degrees on the kiln, so that's good. Okay, you want to get that? Okay, now we're going to get the pot up out of the furnace with the tongs. Ready? Sit it in the pouring shank. I'll get that. Now we're going to use the hoist to pick up the shank and the crucible. Look good? Okay. Okay, I got it. And we'll pour the 2 big molds first. Is that gonna be too high, or are you okay? A little bit more. Got it. Looks good. Got it. Okay, now we're going to reverse the procedure and put everything back. And then we're going to take that rack out of the kiln, the molds that we just poured. and quench those molds in this water tank. And then we're going to load another rack.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we have been watching as Brad Morton creates a bronze sculpture that will be the focal point of today's water feature. Before we left, Brad had poured the molds. Now it's time to cool them down and see what's there.
Brad, I know we've poured our molten metals into the molds, and we're fixing to cool it down. And the very beginning, what are your first steps when you design a sculpture like we've done in today's show?
Well, I normally work on a small scale, do a small maquette, either in clay or plaster or wax, sometimes wood, and then let that be kind of the scale model, prototype of what we're going to build on a larger scale. So then once we have someone interested that wants to do that on a larger scale, I take it and do it again in clay, full size, and then I go through a process of making molds in sections off of the whole surface of that large scale clay. And once we do the molds off of the clay, I go through the whole process of the lost wax casting process. This is the culmination of all of the casting, mold making part of the whole total process. Once we've got all these cast in bronze in sections, then we go to the next phase of cleaning the individual castings up and reassembling those in bronze back into what we had in clay originally. I'm going to let them hang right there just for a minute or two so that we make sure they're solid before they go in that water. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get these molds out, and then we can break the shell off of them. These larger molds are actually going to be tree trunk sections that'll be part of some table legs that I'm doing. I'm building a table out of this big slab of stone that's over here on the parking lot. That'll be the tabletop. So I'll just break the ceramic shell off of the bronze and get the bulk of it off this way. And then I'll go back and cut all the sprues and vents off of the tree trunk castings, and then I'll sandblast the remainder of the shell off to get it back where it's nice and clean, and then it'll be ready to weld back together.
All right, here we are in Brad's courtyard, and this is the particular piece that we're going to be installing today. And as we were pouring those last pieces, Brad, we were discussing, how you have to take these individual pieces and actually reattach them. Exactly how does this process go?
Well, these are sections of this vessel. We pour the vessel in 3 separate molds, and this is after we've cleaned the shell off the casting, so we're back down to the bronze, and we've cut all the sprues and vents off where we had the sprues attached to the wax pattern, and that is the way that the bronze gets into the shape that you're casting, is through those sprues. Some people refer to it as a gating system because you're actually providing gates for the bronze to run into the mold. And so we've got all that cut off now, so we're down to the 3 sections of this vessel. So then the next thing will be to take the sections and fit them back together. And a lot of times you get a little warpage in the wax. You get a little warpage sometimes in the bronze just from the cooling action of the casting. But this one looks like it's going to fit together pretty well. So then the next step would be to be in the studio with the TIG welding machine, and we actually start welding the seam back together, and then we insert the lip to the vessel and weld around the edge to that to give it the thickness that we're looking for in the finished piece. And then when this vessel is all completely finished, we will go ahead and sand the seams down where we've welded it and do the final patina on the piece, and we'll probably end up with a vessel that'll weigh somewhere between 90 and 100 pounds.
When we come back, we will see Brad's creation put to good use in a water feature designed specifically for this sculpture. Welcome back. So far, we have seen Brad Morton create a beautiful bronze sculpture. Now let's see how Chuck incorporates it into this backyard oasis.
What I think we're going to do on this project is have the water pouring from the urn into a large rock that we're going to hew out a hole in the center, so that as the water pours out, it's going to disappear into this large rock, and we're going to have some other smaller stepping stones scattered throughout the pond, drill a few holes in each one of them, and have the water bubbling out of each stone. It'll be a functional, practical piece, and Junior here will have something to play with when he comes out into the yard during the summer, won't you? Won't that be fun? Oh, see there, he's enthused already. So let's go out and have a look at the pond and see how our excavation is progressing. We're going to take our first elevation from the beginning of the little knee wall here, because what we want to know is exactly how this elevation is falling from front to back. So right now, basically what he just shot, we're 51.5 is the bottom of the pool. 46.5. And 46.5 is the bottom elevation on the top side. So you can see from that, we've actually got an elevation that's working uphill. So to get the pond level and make sure the sides, we've got adequate water depth, we're going to have
Well, the first day went smoothly and rain was
down
expected, so we covered our soon-to-be pond and called it a
just to
day.
get the bottom level. Here we are, second day on the job, and well, actually it's not our second day. We had a couple of days of rain, delayed us. We came in, of course, had the pond was half full of water because we did the wise thing. Anytime you make an excavation, you want to have that liner handy so that you can bring it in, cover up your hole so that you don't have a big mud hole when you return. So luckily we had put our liner in. We pumped the water out. We probably had 6 inches of water in the bottom of the pool. And once we had the water pumped out of the bottom, we pulled the liner back, and we had a really bad seepage problem right up under the base of our liner. And this is going to be a real important factor for you to remember if you get into any type of excavation and you start having this problem. It's rare, but it is a sometimes common problem depending upon the soil conditions. But what we had happen here was after our good topsoil was removed, we hit a layer of clay. Well, basically what was happening is during all the rainfall, the rain of course perked through the good soil and it hits our clay level. And then we end up and the water just stops right at the clay level. Well, of course, our liner is excavated and the hole is excavated to the liner depth, so all the other water from the surrounding areas migrate to our hole. So basically we had just a big sump hole here, so even after we had the water drained out of the pool itself and we had a couple of days of dry weather, we were continually getting water seeping into our low sump hole. So what we've had to do is we've come in and there was a front support wall or retaining wall in front of the project, and we drilled through that wall, made it so that we could actually get a French drain that's going to connect from the pool over to the wall, so that now any water that migrates into our pool area, since it is the lowest elevation in the whole landscaped area, it's going to come to the liner, go under the liner, and it'll hit our French drain. And as you can see, as I'm pulling the liner back, the difference between the good topsoil and the clay level. So you can see how impermeable this clay is and how heavy it is. And it's just like clay dough. I mean, just look at this stuff, how it's just, you know, impermeable. It's not going to let any water penetrate it at all. So if we didn't go ahead and take this precaution, it's going to be a continual problem for the homeowners. What we're going to start doing now is going ahead and setting our stepping stone fountain pieces in the pond. And basically what we're going to do is, as we set each stone, we're going to turn around and take an elevation. And we want these stone heights to vary within the pond itself. I don't want everything to be the same elevation. We almost want it to be like if you're taking a little walk across the creek and there's some stones, some are a little bit higher, some are a little bit shallower, some may even be just slightly submerged, but you can walk on them. So what we're wanting to create is that same effect. All right, we've already chosen our base pieces, so we're going to go ahead and set these in place and somewhat doing them in a random fashion throughout the pond. We don't want everything to be exactly precise because, you know, like I said before, what we want is this to appear that it's, you know, you're just walking across a stream and you've got totally unlevel stone heights. So we're going to try to recreate this as well. So we got our stone piece chosen so that, you know, you saw our basic rectangular formation on the stone heights. We'll come back in here and drill a hole again, not doing every one exactly center. We're going to slightly offset each one so that nothing seems to be just completely uniform and standardized. Give it some slight irregularity and randomness to what we're doing. We're going to have a total of 6 stepping stone fountain stones in the pond itself, you know, plus the sculpture piece also. So we're going to be running a total of basically 7 appliances off of our pump. So we're going to be running 2 1,200 gallon per hour pumps. So what I'm going to start off with is we're going to start off running a 1-inch line, and as we get to each one of the stones and the fountain, we're going to split off from that 1 inch and reduce it down to a 1/2 inch. And that's a twofold reason. One is to go ahead and make sure that we keep plenty of pressure into it. And then because you're running a 1-inch line, we're going to make sure that we're teeing off with that 1/2 inch. So that's what Stephen's in the process of doing now. You know, we've got our first stone drilled and we're getting ready to set it and run that pipe from our little pump area. And on each one of them, we're going to have a 1/2 inch gate valve. And what that is going to allow us to do is regulate the amount of flow that goes to each stone fountain. The differential is going to be the further you get from your pump, you're going to get different amounts of water. You know, we may get in here and as we start playing with this thing, we may want to get more flow off of one stone versus another stone, so that if we'll come in here and make these preparations beforehand, you know, we're not leaving everything to chance. We know that we can come back in and regulate each one of the stones themselves and get different and varying types of effects. So we'll get this thing piped up and you're going to see how we're going to make each one individual and separate, as well as trying to do a good job of hide all of the plumbing. Once the piping is laid down, we're going to come back on top of the whole bottom pond area and lay a bed of this thin creek rock. Well, it's the final day of construction and time to place our sculpture in place, and the creator of our piece, Brad Morton, arrives on site to help us out. All right, now push that down. And actually, I'm gonna need to try to go back again. After some minor adjustments to make sure the water supply hose was properly in place, we added rock to the base of the sculpture. It was then chipped and carved to create the illusion of the water pouring into the rock, then bubbling up from the surrounding stepping stones.
We're here with our homeowner, Lynn Ann, who has been gracious enough to share this project with us. Lynn Ann, What made you decide to go with a water feature in your backyard?
Well, this project's been in the making a long time. We've probably had this area empty for 4 or 5 years and just really had looked at magazines and talked to folks and looked at other people's gardens and knew we wanted a water feature, but didn't really know what type of water feature. So when we were finally ready, we called Chuck and had him come over and sat down with him and looked at it and studied it, and I think right away Chuck knew that this was going to be the rock wall here, which is very old, would be the perfect backdrop for one of Brad Morton's pieces of art. Brad came over and he made a great backdrop for us. He did a prototype of this wall, and we looked at several different ideas. And when he finally said, how about a sculpture that would be more of a pouring of the water into the water, it just sounded terrific. So I kind of let them go with it and use their creativeness to come up with what we have, but with the only criteria that we gave them. And that was that it had to be a pond that was kid-friendly and dog-friendly. It had to be a pond that made a lot of noise, but not too much noise. We didn't want it to drown out the backyard, but it's such a big backyard that we wanted to be able to hear dropping water. And we also wanted it to be something that the kids could play in. So no fish or aquatic plants. And that's where we went. And it kind of evolved out of that. We've tweaked it a little bit, and it just turned out better than we ever dreamed it would.
Well, I'm so glad, and thank you again for sharing this with me. And thank you for joining us today on Backyard Oasis, the show that is all about water.
Water, cool, clear water. Water running down the mighty Mississippi. Oh, water. You know there's some down there in Mobile. Water, baby, come on, give me a sip.